I drove back after weeks at my sister's hospital bedside and found my life treated like rubbish, shoved into boxes and parked in the garage. My son-in-law stood there with that smug little smile and declared, "You don't live here anymore. My father needs the room." I looked at him, cold as winter, and said, "Then I'll put another piece of trash out on the curb. It's time they learned who really holds the power." Before we go on, please subscribe to the channel and drop in the comments what time it is where you are now. I rolled into the driveway at 4:17 on a Wednesday afternoon, my lower back humming from 3 weeks of hospital chairs and a lumpy guest bed at my sister's. The March sky over Portland was a flat sheet of gray, flirting with rain but not committing. On the way home, I'd stopped at that toy store in Olympia, the one with wooden trains in the window, because Emma was learning colors and little Marcus loved anything with wheels. The gift bag sat on the passenger seat beside an envelope with $3,000 in cash. I'd taken it out before leaving for Seattle, money I'd been stashing away for Jennifer's roof. The shingles were curling on the south side. She'd mentioned it last fall, afraid of leaks. That's what fathers do. We fix the things that matter. We provide. I gathered the bags carefully, tucked the envelope into my jacket, and hauled the duffel from the trunk. My knees protested. 64 years will collect a ledger of every hard step you take. 3 weeks beside my sister's bed had only added interest. The front door was unlocked. I pushed it open with my shoulder and called, "I'm home." "Where is everyone?" Silence answered. Not the peaceful hush of an empty house, but something heavier, expectant. I set the toys on the entry table and noticed Jennifer's keys in the bowl and Kevin's jacket on the hook. Someone was here. I moved down the hall toward my bedroom, planning to drop the duffel and lie down for 20 minutes before dinner. The master was closed. Odd. Voices came from behind it, low and easy, the kind that belong to people who feel they own a space. I didn't knock. Instead, I headed to the garage thinking I'd stash the bag, come back for the gifts, give them a minute. I opened the garage and reached for the light. Boxes. Dozens, stacked like a cheap maze where my workbench used to be. Narrow paths between towers of cardboard. My hand held the switch and my eyes found the nearest label in Jennifer's handwriting. Marural. Clothes. Beside it, Marural. Books. Another, Marural. Personal items. My framed photos, the ones that had stood on my dresser for 30 years, sat bubble-wrapped and crumpled in an open box. I lifted Jennifer's kindergarten picture. The glass was split by a diagonal crack right through her gap-toothed smile. I don't remember dropping the duffel. I don't remember how long I stood staring at my life packed like inventory for a moving company. "You're back," Kevin said from the house. I turned. He stood in the doorway between garage and home, arms folded, blocking my path. No hello, no remorse, no explanation for the scene he'd created. What is this? My voice stayed steadier than I felt. "Jennifer, what's going on?" She appeared behind his shoulder, avoiding my gaze. Her fingers found her wedding ring and twisted it, a nervous little rhythm. "Dad, we need to talk." Kevin cut her off and stepped into the garage like he owned the room, like he owned everything. I set the cracked frame down, carefully. "Handle what? These are my things. This is my house. Was your house." Kevin spoke with that same clipped patience he used on the grandkids when correcting them. "My father needs a place and that bedroom is the best." The words landed like stones. I'd been gone 3 weeks caring for my sister. "You packed up my life?" "You weren't using it," he shrugged, an indifferent flick that carried a mountain of contempt. The room was empty. We made a practical decision. I looked at Jennifer, half hidden behind her husband. "Jennifer, you didn't agree to this." "Kevin handles the house decisions now," she whispered. Her voice was thin. Her eyes would not meet mine. Kevin's smile never reached his eyes. New rules for a new situation. A door thudded open in the hall, and an older man, tall, slicked hair, wearing a bathrobe, appeared. My bathrobe, Harold. He scanned the garage, saw me among the boxes, and his mouth made a small curve of satisfaction before he walked back into the house. The master door clicked shut. Harold had been here twice before. Then he'd come across as arrogant, the type who treats waitstaff like invisible fixtures. "Your father is in my bedroom," Kevin announced as if announcing a fact. "He needs comfort. He's 65, has back trouble. That mattress is better. The attached bathroom makes sense." I reached into my jacket, pulled out the envelope, and held it out to Jennifer. "I brought money for the roof. $3,000 I saved." Kevin took it from me before Jennifer could move. Didn't unfold it, didn't say thanks. He shoved it into his back pocket like spare change. "Good, we'll need that. The garage has electricity. You'll be comfortable enough out here." He turned and left. Jennifer followed. Neither looked back. The door closed. There I stood, surrounded by boxes holding everything I'd owned in the house I'd paid off 15 years ago. From the master came television laughter. Harold's pleased, brazen sound cutting through the drywall. I lifted the toy bags and set them on a box labeled Marural Shoes. I opened the photo box again, smoothed my thumb across the cracked glass. I didn't remember that break before they packed it. Careless hands, deliberate disrespect. Same difference. Laughter drifted from the bedroom. My bedroom. My television. My house. I walked back inside. My jaw ached from clenching. I wanted answers. I needed to know what had happened while I'd held my sister's hand through nights I'll never forget. In the living room I found them. Kevin sprawled on the couch, Jennifer curled in an armchair, Harold clutching the remote like a crown. I asked for an explanation. Kevin gave me the decision, flat and final. I asked Jennifer to look at me, to remember who I was. She stared at the carpet. Harold chuckled. I left. When I returned to the garage, the boxes seemed to have multiplied, or maybe the weight of the scene had simply changed how I saw them. I dug until I found my old blue sleeping bag, the one we used on trips when Jennifer was small, when meteor showers at Crater Lake felt like miracles. I cleared a patch of concrete, pushed aside paint cans and tools, unrolled the bag. The heater in the corner clicked and coughed out a weak stream of lukewarm air. It was something. Not much, but something. Through the thin wall, the house breathed. A sitcom laugh track. Footsteps across the mattress they'd claimed. I lay on the sleeping bag, still in my travel clothes, concrete pressing cold through the fabric. I watched the exposed beams and the pull cord for the bulb and listened to the family live inside a life I'd built. Hours crawled. The house quieted around midnight. I didn't sleep. I ran numbers in my head. Mortgage payments, property taxes, insurance, the new furnace 2 winters ago, every penny I'd poured into keeping the place standing. My name was on every document. By the dim light, I found the box marked Important Papers. Inside, the house deed, a property ownership certificate with Marural Andrew Bell as sole owner. Purchased April the 12th, 1995. A mortgage satisfaction letter from the bank dated 2010. Utility bills, all addressed to me. I spread them across an overturned crate like evidence, reading them like a lawyer. Jennifer's name was nowhere. I'd meant to add her one day. Thought about it around tax time each year, but I hesitated. Kevin always seemed careless with money. Maybe I'd known somehow that I shouldn't hand him that much power. Laughter started again in the master bedroom. Harold had found something on TV amusing. Morning edged into 60, and the eastern window above my workbench glowed pale gray. I'd been awake all night plotting scenarios, doing calculations, trying to learn the full extent of what they'd done while I was at my sister's side. I stood, joints protesting, and opened the door into the house. The kitchen was dim, but for a hallway light. I moved quietly, hoping to catch Jennifer alone. In the dining room, Harold sat where I'd sat for every meal, my chair, in a bathrobe that looked expensive. Jennifer stood at the stove with her back to me, making coffee. "More coffee, dear." Harold held out his mug without looking. Jennifer poured and returned to the stove. Something must have creaked. Harold's head turned. He saw me and smiled with that careless cruelty. "Well, look who decided to join us. Sleep well out there?" I ignored him and focused on Jennifer. "I need to speak with you, just us." She tensed but didn't turn. Footsteps on the stairs. Kevin came down, kissed Jennifer on the cheek as if I weren't in the room, and sat beside Harold. "You heard her. We're eating." I stepped into the room and felt the temperature shift. Kevin sat straighter. Harold put down his mug with calculated noise. "This is my house," I said, each word carved out. "I bought it 30 years ago. My name's on every document." Kevin pulled out his chair and adopted a casual posture. "And Jennifer is your daughter. What's yours is hers. What's hers is mine. That's marriage." Harold laughed like the whole world was a private joke. I demanded Jennifer look at me. She met my eyes for half a second, then turned away. "Kevin knows what's best for our family. His father needs care. You travel anyway. You were caring for your aunt." Harold spread his hands. "You can stay in the garage as long as you follow house rules. Kevin's rules." The word boarder and the implication that I was now a tolerated guest hung in the air. Tenant. Someone with permission to live on the margins of his own property. I looked at them. Kevin smug and cruel, Harold openly contemptuous, Jennifer resigned or afraid. I walked back through the kitchen and into the garage. I closed the door gently, not slamming it. I didn't need a theatrical gesture. The papers were still spread on the crate. The deed, the mortgage, satisfaction letter, the utility bills, all my name. I picked up my phone, scrolled to the contact I needed, and didn't call. I sat on the overturned crate, holding the phone, looking through the garage window at my house where they laughed in the night. They thought I was weak. They thought I'd accept exile. They had forgotten what I knew. 40 years of work taught me how structures fail and how to take them apart without the whole thing collapsing until you wanted it to. I hovered my finger over the contact name. Not yet. First, I needed to know every detail of what they'd moved while I was gone. Then, I'd start making calls. In daylight, the garage felt less like exile and more like a staging ground. I pulled clean clothes from a box with my name on it, packed toiletries, and loaded my duffel into the trunk. Deliberate, methodical. I wanted them to see me packing. As I closed the trunk, the front door opened and Kevin stepped out, standing and watching without offering help or asking questions. "I'm heading to a motel. Give you folks some room." My voice was even. He showed a look that could be called relief disguised as concern. Probably for the best. Less tension for everyone, especially the grandkids. He said it as if they had just occurred to him. Jennifer followed me to the car, slippers scuffing on the concrete. "Dad, you understand, don't you? Harold has health problems." I loaded the last bag without turning. "I understand everything now," I said. "You're always so reasonable." The word stung. I had been reasonable for 64 years. Reasonable when her mother died and I raised her alone. Reasonable when Kevin lost yet another job and I covered the mortgage for 6 months. Reasonable when they moved in, temporarily, 5 years ago, and that temporary arrangement calcified into ownership. I drove away and watched them shrink in the rear view. Kevin's arm around Jennifer. Both of them relaxed and victorious. The Budget Inn on 82nd Avenue wasn't a resort. The carpet had seen better decades, the AC wheezed, the lot needed resurfacing. But the weekly rate was fair, and the clerk at the desk didn't ask questions when I said I'd be staying a while. Room 217 smelled of old coffee. I spread my documents across the narrow desk. Deed, papers, utility bills, bank statements proving every payment came from my account. The house deed felt smaller under the motel lamp, but the words were the same. Sole owner, Marural Andrew Bell. Purchase date, April the 12th, 1995. In the document box, I found my old wallet. Behind an expired card and a graduation photo, I found a small brass key on a paper tag. My safe deposit key. Wells Fargo downtown still had the same marble floors I remembered. Security was tighter now. More cameras, more forms, a younger employee who scanned my ID 3 times before leading me to the vault. "Haven't seen you in a while, Mr. Bell. Everything okay?" I took the long metal box and felt its weight. "Just reviewing documents," I said. Inside the safe, the original deed with its embossed seal, the title insurance, and a mortgage satisfaction letter from 2018. I remembered that day. The relief of making the final payment after 30 years and taking Jennifer and the grandkids out to celebrate. Kevin hadn't come. Back at the FedEx on Burnside, I had better light than the motel. I laid out deed, title, mortgage certificate, 2 years of utility bills with only my name, and bank statements showing payments from my account. "Property matter," the clerk said. He was young, tattooed, his name tag read Marcus, same as my grandson. He printed certified copies. The pages came out warm and crisp. Back in the motel, I organized. Originals in one stack, copies in another, my notes in a third. On the motel pad, I sketched a timeline. April 1995, purchased house. September 2012, Jennifer married Kevin. March 2018, fell mortgage payment. January 2020, Jennifer, Kevin, and kids moved in temporarily. March 2025, my belongings moved to garage and Harold moved into the master. The dates told a clean story. I'd owned the home free and clear for 7 years before Jennifer moved in. The marriage predated my final payment by 6 years. Legally, their claim was thin. I remembered Kevin at my kitchen table 2 years ago, calculator out, a yellow legal pad full of numbers, warning me about estate taxes, how putting the house in Jennifer's name could expose her to 40% loss. He painted it as prudence. I had taken it at face value then. Now I saw it differently. If the house had been in Jennifer's name and they split, he'd have made his claim. As long as it remained mine, he needed to keep her content. I typed Oregon tenant eviction laws into the laptop and read, lease requirements, notice periods, tenant rights, Oregon revised statutes. No lease existed. They were occupants, not tenants. That changed everything. I made notes, highlighted statutes, and built a legal checklist. Around 6 that evening, I labeled a manila folder, Property Evidence. Then I searched for real estate attorneys in Portland, landlord-tenant specialists, family property experts. Most were too corporate. On the third page, I found Clark and Associates. Dorothy Clark's photo looked like her real self. Gray hair, keen eyes, about my age. Her bio said 30 years in residential property law and family matters. Straightforward solutions to complex problems. The office was downtown. I could be there tomorrow when it opened. I set the alarm for 7 and slept for the first time since Seattle. Not perfect sleep, but real rest. At 8 the next morning, the law office on the 5th floor smelled of old polish and new coffee. The door to Clark and Associates gleamed. The receptionist looked up with efficient caution. "Do you have an appointment, sir?" I held up the folder. "No, but I need to speak with Miss Clark about property law. It's urgent." She hesitated, then said, "She has 15 minutes before her next client." Dorothy emerged. Exactly like her picture. Competent, direct, a navy suit that said she meant business without yelling it. "Tell me the facts," she said, leaning forward. "Who owns what? When purchased? Who's on title?" Her interruption was gentle but precise. I told her, bought in 1995, paid off in 2018, only my name on everything. My daughter lives there with her husband, their children, and now his father. They put my things in the garage while I was with my sister. Dorothy's pen flew. "Do they pay rent? Lease?" I shook my head. "I pay everything. Utilities, taxes, insurance." Her expression sharpened into professional clarity. "Then you have perfect legal standing." "This isn't complicated." "But she's my daughter," I said, "because what else do you say when the law is clear and the heart is raw? People will think I'm cruel." Dorothy's look softened, but her voice tightened. "What matters is the law. Are legal and right the same? Sometimes, sometimes not. But here, legally, you are solid." She led me to her conference table and had me spread the folder on polished wood. She marked key documents with sticky notes, annotated, and moved with economical efficiency. House deed, sole ownership, mortgage satisfaction, utility bills, bank statements in your name, she said, scanning. Textbook perfect. No lease, no rent, no tenant rights. Oregon law allows a no-cause eviction with proper notice. Start with a 30-day no-cause notice. If they don't comply, you move to court. If they fight it, 2 to 3 months. If they're sensible, they leave after the notice. She drew boxes on the whiteboard and wrote Oregon Revised Statutes 90.427 under the first step. When I asked how they might twist this to make me look cruel or punish me for hurting the grandchildren, Dorothy's voice gained the weight of someone who'd seen these family dramas before. Legal clarity wrapped in practical counsel. She didn't promise fireworks. She promised process. That was enough. 3 years ago, my son tried to have me declared incompetent, wanted my law practice, said I couldn't handle contracts, couldn't be trusted with clients. He had a psychiatrist lined up, statements from people he claimed I'd confused in conversation. I leaned forward. "What did you do?" Dorothy asked. I told her. I took him to court, brought my own experts, client testimonials, case files showing 0 mistakes. I won. We haven't spoken since. Any regrets? Her eyes held mine. Only that I didn't do it sooner. Family isn't permission to be abused, Mr. Bell. Family means higher standards, and when they can't meet them, you protect yourself. Her credenza photograph made sense then. Not a son's portrait, but a daughter's. The woman who would stand by her. "How do we start?" I asked. Dorothy pulled a pre-printed eviction form from her drawer. "I'll draft the notice today, get it notarized tomorrow, serve it Monday by certified mail and sheriff's deputy. That starts your 30 days. She named her fee. A flat $2,500 plus court costs if we have to file. After that, she said, all communication goes through me. No negotiations. No conversations. I took out my checkbook. When do I pay? Half now, half when they vacate. I wrote $250 without flinching. The sum felt right. A bargain to reclaim what was mine. Dorothy walked me to the window and we watched the street below. People with coffee, briefcases, dogs, lives carrying on. "They'll be shocked," she said. "They'll call angry. Don't engage. Route everything to me." She handed me a business card and wrote her cell number on the back. "Call anytime, evenings." Her fingers lingered on mine for a beat longer than strict professionalism required. "You're doing the right thing," she said. I believed her. More than I'd believed Jennifer's excuses, Kevin's justifications, or my own ability to fix what had been broken. "What do I do until Monday?" I asked. She smiled, the first softness I'd seen. "Whatever you want. Just don't go back to that house yet." I left her office. The spring air smelled like rain, and the city cast long shadows. My phone buzzed. A text from Jennifer. "Dad, where are you?" "The kids want to say hi." I deleted it. Dorothy had said no contact. I would follow her counsel. Back at the motel, I ordered Chinese, spread the documents across the desk, and for the first time they looked like tools. Not relics of loss, but ammunition. Proof I wasn't helpless. Proof I had recourse. Monday was 3 days away. 72 hours until the notice hit, until their comfortable assumption of victory might crack. I ate slowly and slept better than I had in weeks. The coffee shop near the motel smelled of burnt beans and cleaner. I sat in the corner, phone on the table, waiting. Dorothy had recommended a notary, Stephen Wright, one who specialized in difficult service, foreclosures, restraining orders, bankruptcy notices. "Your eviction notice will be easy by comparison," she'd said. My coffee went cold. A text came at 10:53, delivered to Kevin Thompson. 10:47 a.m., signed receipt attached. "Stephen," I let out my breath. I hadn't realized I'd been holding it. The attachment was Kevin's signature, hasty, angular, on the acknowledgement line. Proof that the 30-day clock had started. Stephen later told me what I hadn't seen. Kevin had opened the door in sweatpants, annoyed at being interrupted. He read the paper and laughed out loud. "This is a joke, right?" he'd said and signed. "Whether you think it's valid doesn't stop the timeline," Stephen told him. Kevin mocked the notice aloud to whoever was inside. Confidence oozed from him at first. That confidence lasted about 4 hours. At 3:15, my phone rang. An unknown number. "Mr. Bell, this is Dan Richardson. I'm a friend of Kevin's. He just showed me the eviction notice." Legit. I thought we could discuss terms. I cut him off. "There are no terms. The notice stands." He tried to persuade. I hung up. Kevin came to the motel that evening. I heard him before I saw him, heavy, deliberate footsteps meant to intimidate. He pounded on the door with the side of his fist. I opened it and stood in the jam so other guests could hear. "Merle, come on. Let's talk like adults." "We're past talking," I said. "You'd really throw your family out?" "I'm enforcing my property rights. You have 30 days." His mask slipped. Do this, and you'll never see those kids again. Ever." My voice stayed level. "Then you'll never see the inside of that house after May 2nd. Your choice." He stepped forward, searching for weakness and finding none. "Find him appropriate housing," he said, meaning my father. "That's not my responsibility." He left with slow, deliberate steps. I closed the door and waited. 90 minutes later, my phone showed Jennifer. "Dad, please," she sobbed. "The kids are asking why Grandpa is making us leave." I heard Kevin coaching in the background like a stage director. "Tell him about their school." I put the call on speaker. Kevin's voice cut through. "We're not leaving. Force us out and watch what happens to your reputation." My reputation is with myself, I thought. "I'll see you in 30 days, I said. Harold grabbed the phone and spat, "You senile old fool. You think you can?" I hung up. The calls kept coming. Kevin's number rang and I let it go. Texts came. "You just made the biggest mistake of your life." Deleted. Another from Jennifer. "How could you do this to your family?" Deleted. Then a Facebook notification. Jennifer had tagged me. I opened the app, a rarity, and saw a photo of Emma and Marcus pouting into the camera. Caption: "Heartbroken that my children are being forced from their home by their grandfather. Please send prayers." Comments stacked up fast. "So sorry. Praying for you and the babies. Family should support one another." Strangers weighing in on half a story. Dorothy had warned me this would happen. She called that night. "Standard," she said. "Make the other side look like the villain. Don't engage." "People I've known for years are commenting," I said. "They don't know the whole story." "You can't win a trial on social media, Merle. Stay silent." She was right. But seeing it, the sympathetic posts and the righteous outrage, stung sharper than I'd imagined. The next morning, I checked Facebook against my better judgment. Jennifer's post had multiplied. 17 comments now, messages from former colleagues, neighbors who'd known me since Jennifer was 6, Mrs. Patterson from down the street. "This breaks my heart." The town was already composing its opinion. Those poor babies. A new post blinked onto my feed as I stared at a picture of Harold slumped in an armchair, looking fragile and worried. Jennifer's caption read, "Facing homelessness at 65 with serious health conditions. Where is the compassion?" I closed the app and hurled the phone onto the motel bed. Wednesday morning, the motel clerk called my room. "Mr. Bell, there's a certified letter for you." The return address was a strip mall on 122nd. I opened the envelope standing under the sputtering parking lot light. The letterhead read Martin Webb, attorney at law. I read the first line and my stomach tightened. "I represent Kevin Thompson, Jennifer Thompson, Harold Thompson, and minor children Emma and Marcus. Your eviction constitutes elder abuse and endangers the welfare of the minor children by creating housing instability." I read it twice. The accusations were nonsense. Legal theater designed to frighten. Still, seeing the words elder abuse and endangering minors printed and signed made me feel monstrous for a moment. I called Dorothy from my car and read the sections aloud. "Posturing," she said calmly when I finished. "Webb's a strip mall lawyer trying to scare you into backing down. The notice stands." My voice wanted to believe her certainty so badly I almost clung to it. Thursday afternoon I had to buy groceries. Bread, milk, coffee, the ordinary errands that keep the day honest. Fred Meyer on 82nd was busier than a weekday should be. I pushed a cart toward produce, selected apples, drifted to dairy, and then heard my name. Merle. Mrs. Patterson stood by the bananas, cart half filled. We'd lived 2 doors apart for 20 years. She'd brought casseroles after my wife died and babysat the kids when I needed a hand. Today, her look was unfamiliar, cold, disappointed. "I saw Jennifer's post," she said, and the pity in her voice felt like a slap. "Those poor children. I never thought you'd be that kind of grandfather." Her words jabbed harder than anything Kevin had said. "There's always another way," she added, shaking her head and walking off like she'd lost faith in me. I left the cart in the aisle and walked out of the store. Back at the motel, a text from Dorothy waited. Need to talk. Not about the case, about you. Coffee tomorrow? I stared at it. My first impulse was to say no. Instead, I typed, maybe. Her reply was immediate. 1 Das. The. Caf on Hawthorne near 35th. Please, I agreed because I didn't have the stamina to refuse. The caf was tucked between a used bookshop and a vintage clothing store. Dorothy was already there at a corner table with 2 cups cooling beside her. Black, right? She asked. How did you know? I said. You strike me as someone who doesn't complicate things. We sat for a bit in silence. The coffee was better than motel sludge, warm and steady. Maybe everyone's right, I said finally, the doubt raw. Maybe I am being cruel. Dorothy set her cup down like she was setting a small, precise object. Tell me this, she said. When your daughter let her husband pack your belongings, was that kind? No. When they gave your bedroom to his father without asking, was that respectful? No. Then why are you the one questioning yourself? She watched me a moment, then leaned back and told me something I hadn't known. Her own son had once tried to have her declared incompetent. He'd needed her out of the way to take over her practice. She'd fought him in court, brought experts, and won. I lost him, she said quietly. But I kept my dignity. Her voice was steady. Do you regret it? I asked. I regret being forced to choose, but I don't regret choosing myself. Outside, rain began pattering against the window. A young couple laughed over a phone at the next table. Ordinary life going on like nothing had happened. What if I lose everyone? I whispered. Dorothy reached across the table and covered my hand with hers. Warm, solid, an anchor. Then you find new people. Better people. People who don't mistake kindness for weakness. Her hand felt different than anything I'd had in years. My wife had been gone 12 years. I hadn't held another woman's hand in a long time. This felt less like comfort and more like partnership. Someone beside me rather than looking on. They're counting on your weakness, she said. They're hoping you'll back down for peace. That's not peace. That's surrender. You'll spend the rest of your life wondering why you let them win. The rain picked up. Neither of us moved our hands. The notice still stands? I asked, not as a question. It stands, she said, and let our fingers interlace. For the first time since the grocery store, I felt less alone. Outside, strangers might judge me and strangers online might call me heartless. But here, sheltered by a woman who had lived betrayal, I felt a certainty I'd lost in the weeks since I'd come home. Dorothy took me back to her office that afternoon and spread my utility bills across the conference table like a dealer laying out a hand. Electric, water, cable, internet, my name on every headline. They're living in your house on your dime, she said, tapping the cable bill. Time to turn off the money. We were 2 weeks into the 30-day notice period. Jennifer's Facebook had continued with staged snapshots of kids at a kitchen table, captions about resilience and standing strong. Kevin hadn't answered calls since he was served. They were dug in, treating the notice like an empty threat. The notice expires in 2 weeks, Dorothy said, studying me. If they're not gone, we increase pressure. How? Cable disconnects in 48 hours. Utilities can be reduced. All legal. You're the account holder. Say you're transitioning the property or preparing to sell. Companies don't care about family drama. She pulled her laptop around and showed me the steps. Cable disconnection timelines, electric reduction paperwork. You can't shut off electricity entirely, safety rules, but you can request a reduction to minimum service. Refrigerator, basic lighting. Nothing for entertainment. No comfort. I thought of Harold and Kevin in my master bedroom, watching sports and laughing over whatever show they liked. I thought of Emma and Marcus streaming cartoons and someone running the dryer half the day. Do it, I said. Back at the motel, I called the cable company first, phone on speaker, scribbling notes the way I'd once sketched blueprints. May I ask reason for disconnection? The rep asked. Property transition, I said. I'm no longer residing at that address and no one is taking over the account. Complete disconnection can be processed in 48 hours, she said. Confirmation arrived in my inbox before noon. The electric company was more finicky. The rep suggested transferring the account to the occupants. Property is being contested, I explained. I'm requesting minimum service until resolved. Minimum service would keep the refrigerator humming and a single light in rooms. No heating beyond basic pipe protection, no AC, no entertainment sockets. The confirmation came that evening, reduction effective in 5 business days. I photographed every email, every confirmation, and made a spreadsheet. Dates, account numbers, confirmation codes. My architectural precision applied to legal warfare. Dorothy called that night. How did it go? She asked. Cable cuts. Friday, I told her. Those poor babies. A fresh post blinked into my feed as I stared at a photo of Harold slumped in an armchair, looking frail and anxious. Jennifer's caption read, "Facing homelessness at 65 with serious health conditions. Where is the compassion?" I shut the app and flung the phone onto the motel bed. Wednesday morning, the motel desk called. Mr. Bell, a certified letter arrived for you. The return address was a strip mall law office on 122nd. I opened the envelope under the sputtering parking lot light and read the letter aloud to myself. Martin Webb, attorney at law. I represent Kevin Thompson, Jennifer Thompson, Harold Thompson, and minor children Emma and Marcus. Your eviction constitutes elder abuse and endangers the welfare of the minor children by creating housing instability. I read it twice. The claims were theatrics, empty, designed to frighten. But seeing the phrases elder abuse and endangering minors printed on official stationery made my stomach lurch. I called Dorothy from the car and read the critical lines. Posturing, she said, flat and steady. Webb's a strip mall lawyer trying to scare you into backing down. The notice stands. I clung to her certainty like a life preserver. 2 days later, I had to buy groceries. Bread, milk, coffee. The small errands that keep you tethered to ordinary life. Fred Meyer on 82nd was busier than a weekday should be. I was in the dairy aisle when a voice said, "Merle." Mrs. Patterson stood by the bananas, cart half full. We'd been neighbors for 20 years. She'd brought casseroles when my wife died, babysat Emma and Marcus when needed. Today, her face was unfamiliar, cool, disappointed. I saw Jennifer's post, she said, and pity that sounded like reproach stabbed sharper than any of Kevin's barbs. Those poor children. I never thought you'd be that kind of grandfather. Her words felt like a slap. There's always another way, she added and walked off. I left the cart in the aisle and walked out. A message from Dorothy waited at the motel. Need to talk. Not about the case, about you. Coffee tomorrow? I hesitated, then typed back yes. She sent a time, 1 o'clock, the calf on Hawthorne near 35th. I agreed because I didn't have the strength to refuse. The calf was a quiet place sandwiched between a used bookshop and a vintage clothing store. Dorothy was already at a corner table with 2 cooling cups. Black, right? She asked as if she'd known forever. You strike me as someone who doesn't complicate things, she added. Her manner was exact and unshowy. We sat in silence for a while and let the coffee do its work. Finally, I said the thing that had been gnawing at me. Maybe they're right. Maybe I am being cruel. Dorothy set her cup down gently. When your daughter let her husband pack your belongings. Kind? No. When they turned your bedroom over to his father without asking. Respectful? No. Then why are you doubting yourself? She told me a story I hadn't known. Her own son had once tried to have her declared incompetent to take over her practice. She fought him in court, brought her experts, defended her mind and her business, and won. I lost him, she said, voice steady. But I kept my dignity. I asked if she regretted it. I regret being forced to choose. I don't regret choosing myself. Rain began to tap the window. A young couple laughed at a phone nearby, the world moving on. What if I lose everyone? I whispered. Dorothy reached across and put her hand over mine. Warm, steady, an anchor. Find new people, better people, she said. People who don't mistake kindness for weakness. Her fingers were different than anyone's had been in a long time. I'd not held another woman's hand since my wife died 12 years ago. This felt less like comfort and more like partnership. They're counting on your weakness, she said. They want you to bow out for peace. That isn't peace, it's surrender. You'll spend the rest of your life wondering why you let them win. The rain rose to a steady fall. I asked, almost under my breath, "The notice still stands?" "It stands," she answered, and our fingers linked. For the first time since Mrs. Patterson walked away, I felt less alone. Back in her office, Dorothy spread my utility bills across the conference table like a strategist laying cards on a table. Electric, water, cable, internet. My name at the top of every one. "They're living in your house on your dime," she said, tapping the cable bill. "Time to turn off the money." We were 2 weeks into the 30-day notice. Jennifer's Facebook kept rolling out staged photos of kids at the kitchen table, captions about resilience. Kevin had gone silent since being served. "They were dug in. The notice expires in 2 weeks," she said. "If they don't leave, we increase pressure." "How?" "Cut cable. Reduce utilities. All legal. You're the account holder. Say you're transitioning the property or preparing to sell. Companies don't care about family drama." She showed me timelines. Cable disconnect in 48 hours, electric reduction paperwork taking longer. You can't shut off electricity completely, safety rules, but you can reduce to minimum service. Refrigerator, 1 light per room, nothing for entertainment or comfort. I thought about Kevin and Harold sprawled in my master bedroom watching sports, about the kids streaming cartoons and the dryer being run half the day. "Do it," I said. I called the cable company first, speaking carefully and recording the details like an architect marking revisions. "Reason for disconnection?" the rep asked. "Property transition. I no longer reside there. No one's taking over." "We can process a complete disconnection in 48 hours, she said. Confirmation pinged my inbox before noon. The electric company was pricklier. The rep proposed transferring the account to the occupants. I explained the property was contested and requested minimum service until resolved. Minimum kept the refrigerator humming and 1 light in each room. No heating beyond pipe protection, no entertainment power. That confirmation arrived that evening. I photographed every email, every confirmation, cataloged them in a spreadsheet with dates and account numbers. My architectural rigor applied to the legal strategy. Cable cuts, Friday, I told Dorothy that night. Electric reduces next Wednesday. She was pleased. Good, now we prepare the next phase. She mentioned selling, or at least preparing to list, staging, and photos to signal seriousness. We met a real estate photographer on Saturday. He did exterior shots while I waited in the car so I wouldn't run into the family. The house looked good in afternoon light. The garden I'd tended for 30 years, the gutters I'd installed 2 summers back, the painted trim Jennifer once praised. "When do you want this to go live?" the photographer asked as he showed us the shots. Dorothy nodded. "Not yet," I said. 10 days. Friday afternoon, the internet died. Kevin called within the hour, voice tight with fury. "What did you do?" "The kids need internet for school." I told him to arrange their own service. I'd given them time. "This is illegal," he spat. "Check with your attorney." I reminded him I was the account holder and could cancel the service I paid for. He hung up. Jennifer called that evening. I could hear children wailing in the background. "Dad, please, the kids can't do homework." "The lights are dim." I told her I'd reduced power to minimum safe levels. Refrigerator runs, a basic light works. Anything else required them to open accounts in their name. 2 days later, Dorothy and I sat in the photographer's office reviewing images that made the property look worth another $20,000. "Send these to Kevin," she suggested. "No words, just photos." I hesitated only a moment before forwarding all 12 images to Kevin. The typing dots sprang up on my screen, then stopped. Typed again, paused, no message arrived. Dorothy's hand found mine at the desk. It was warm and steady. "He knows now," she said softly. "He knows you'll actually do it." We watched the silence like it was evidence. Outside, Portland moved on. Dogs walked, cars rolled, while I dismantled my life in deliberate pieces. Dorothy's hand stayed where it was. That steadiness mattered more than anything I'd lost. She closed the office door, a small, deliberate privacy she rarely used, and sat beside me on the leather couch. "I have a practical solution," she said, and I braced for resistance. The solution was a rental she owned. A small, cream-colored bungalow with a red front door in a quiet part of the city. "It's 15 minutes from my office," she said. "Tenant moved out last month. Use it. It's not charity. It's practical." I argued about the motel. She argued back that the motel smelled of disinfectant and sadness. She unlocked the bungalow, and sunlight wrapped around me through windows that hadn't been shuttered against parking lot glare. 2 bedrooms. Updated kitchen with white subway tile, hardwood floors that sighed pleasantly, a tiny garden with raised beds ready for planting. I felt my shoulders drop for the first time in weeks. "I'll pay rent," I said. "Fine," she answered. "Pay me when you sell the house. Consider it case expenses." She grinned at my attempt to argue the point. "I'm the attorney. I decide expenses." We moved my things from the motel. 2 suitcases, a box of documents, a laptop bag. Everything fit in the trunk of her car. She drove and refused to let me take my vehicle, insisting we handle paperwork at the bungalow. Unpacking took 20 minutes. She knew where everything should live. In the kitchen, she opened the refrigerator. Milk, eggs, bread, vegetables, pasta, sauce. "You stocked it?" I asked. "I had a feeling you'd say yes eventually," she replied. We cooked side by side, water boiling while I chopped. We bumped elbows and laughed when she dropped a spoon. Sunlight fell across her profile as she stirred. Gray hair, reading glasses perched on her head, that small serious smile when concentrating. I realized I was genuinely happy. Not distracted or merely content, but happy. She found my old architecture books and held up a volume on Victorian design. "Used to design buildings?" she asked. "Past tense," I said. "Retired 5 years ago." We ate at the small table and talked about work and family. I asked about her daughter in Boston. "Maybe 2 years ago I cooked for her last," she said. "You learned to fill the space differently," she added. My phone buzzed. Jennifer texted, "Harold and Kevin had a huge fight. Kids are scared. Please reconsider." Dorothy read it over my shoulder and squeezed my hand. We washed dishes together. She scrubbed and I dried, and twilight settled purple over the raised beds where I imagined tomatoes and herbs. At the door, she hesitated with her keys. "Thank you," I said, trying to name everything I couldn't fully express. She adjusted her coat. "You'd do the same," she said finally. "I think you would. You help people. That's why this hurt. They took from someone who gives." I reached out and touched her arm. "Stay a little longer," I asked. She set her keys on the table and smiled. "Maybe one more cup of coffee," she said. 3 months passed, filings, depositions, continuances. The May deadline came and went with Kevin refusing to budge, forcing formal eviction proceedings. Now, in mid-August, we stood in the Multnomah County Courthouse waiting for our case to be called. Dorothy wore charcoal, glasses tucked into her pocket, a leather briefcase heavy with exhibits. She'd spent the previous night preparing questions and documents. More than an attorney now, she was my partner in the fight. "Thompson versus Bell," the bailiff called. Jennifer rounded the corner with Emma and Marcus. Older than I remembered. Emma wore a purple dress. Marcus clutched a dinosaur backpack. Our eyes met across the hall. Marcus tugged Jennifer's hand and asked, "Mommy, who's that man?" Jennifer's face folded for a moment and she said, "Nobody, honey." The word landed harder than any threat Kevin had made. To my grandson, I was a nobody. 3 months away had hollowed me out. My fingers tightened around the folder Dorothy had given me. She squeezed my elbow and murmured, "Come on." The courtroom was smaller than TV made it look. Intimate, unforgiving. Judge Maria Martinez presided, a woman in her 50s with hawk eyes and zero tolerance for melodrama. Dorothy had done her homework on the bench. I could tell by the way she arranged our case like a meticulous builder laying beams. Martin Webb sat at the defense table in a suit that didn't fit the man inside it. Kevin lounged beside him with the confident posture of someone who assumes victory is inevitable. Harold was nowhere in sight. We took our places at the plaintiff's table. Dorothy spread her materials with the same calm concentration she'd shown from day one. Webb opened with heat. Your Honor, my clients are victims of a retaliatory eviction. A bitter man cut off basic utilities to freeze out his own daughter and grandchildren. Judge Martinez didn't flinch. Mr. Webb, she said, looking up, this is a property dispute, not family theater. Focus on standing. Who owns the property? Webb fumbled. His answer was thin. Dorothy rose steadily. She did something simple and devastating. She let the facts speak before she did. She projected the original 1995 deed, my name, embossed on the title line. Then she clicked through the evidence like a hammer driving nails. Bank statements documenting decades of mortgage payments. Utility bills for years with my name on every one. The notarized eviction notice served April 15th. Photographs of my things boxed in the garage with timestamps. Each slide was a quiet, unanswerable fact. Judge Martinez leaned forward. And the respondent's response? She asked. Webb's reply swung from rhetoric to accusation, but when asked for substance, he fell short. Dorothy's presentation made the gap plain. Webb called Kevin to the stand. He walked up like a man doing the court a favor and settled into the witness chair with practiced ease. Soft questions from Webb let him paint the story he'd rehearsed. A family understanding, a permanent move, cruelty alleged where necessity sat. Then Dorothy stood for cross. Her questions were surgical. Mr. Thompson, did you pay rent to Mr. Bell? She asked. We had a family arrangement, he said. Did you obtain permission from Mr. Bell before moving his father into the master bedroom while he was in Seattle? Pause. No. Did you inform him before packing his belongings into the garage? Another pause. No. Kevin's confident mask began to chip. Dorothy laid out sequence after sequence. Stephen's notary affidavit recounting Kevin's initial mockery when served. Phone records documenting threatening calls after service. Emails confirming that the utilities had been reduced at the account holder's direction. That account holder being me. Then she called me. Her questions were plain and unavoidable. Mr. Bell, the night you returned from Seattle, where did you sleep? In my garage. On the concrete. Did anyone apologize? No. The words landed in a hush punctuated only by the court reporter's keys. Documents shuffled. Whispers passed at the defense table. Jennifer sat in the gallery with tissues, her shoulders shaking. Judge Martinez read the paperwork with deliberate care, then looked up with a clarity that felt almost surgical. This court finds no merit in the respondent's claim of constructive eviction. Mr. Bell is the sole owner of the property. The respondents are occupants with no lease and no rent paid, who denied the owner access to his residence. The original eviction notice stands. Her voice cut through the room. The order was precise. Respondents must vacate within 7 days and pay plaintiff $8,500 in court costs plus $5,000 in compensatory damages. The ruling landed like a bell. Harold burst into the courtroom late, breathless, catching only the tail end of it. This is outrageous. We have nowhere, he shouted, storming toward the exit. The judge's patience snapped for a moment. Sit down, or I will hold you in contempt. But she let him go. The ruling remained. Kevin sat stunned, the color draining from his face. Webb gathered his papers, the neat confidence gone. Jennifer stood, took Emma and Marcus by the hand, and moved toward the doors without once looking my way. On the courthouse steps, I watched Kevin help Harold into the car. The old man ranted and gestured while his son's face had the hollow look of someone who knows he's lost more than a court battle. Jennifer loaded the crying children into the back seat. For a fleeting heartbeat, we were father and daughter again. Before the quarrel, before the legal wrangling, before everything snapped. Kevin called her name sharply. She climbed in, and they drove away. Dorothy put an arm through mine. You won, she said softly. I wanted to believe I felt relief, but the victory tasted thin. Winning in court is not always winning in life, she added. I nodded. Still, the ruling mattered. Sometimes protecting yourself is the only victory that counts. She didn't say it, but the way her hand rested on my arm suggested other possibilities. A future that might not be only legal briefs and empty rooms. We drove back to the house together. The courthouse clock read 3:15. 7 days and the place would be legally mine again. The key still turned easily in the lock. I'd never changed it. The house had been mine on paper even when others occupied its rooms. When we opened the front door, the living room felt strangely hollow. Not damaged, just emptied. The walls were bare where family photos had hung, the decorative pillows gone, children's toys absent from corners, Kevin's sports trophies removed from the mantel. It was a clean absence, like a stage set struck down between scenes. My breath came shallow. The space had been cleared out, but the house itself stood whole, waiting. They'd taken what they could but left nothing broken. I moved through the rooms like someone doing inventory of a life reclaimed. The master held only the furniture I'd bought 30 years ago, dragged back from the garage where they'd banished it. The kids' rooms were stripped tidy. Not a stray crayon, not a sock on the floor. No sign of Harold anywhere. On the kitchen counter, a sticky note caught my eye. Jennifer's handwriting, hurried but legible. Dad, I know this doesn't fix anything, but I need to say I was wrong. Kevin pushed and I let him. I forgot who raised me and what you taught me about standing up for what's right. I'm sorry I chose his comfort over your dignity. The kids ask about you. I tell them Grandpa loves them. I hope someday you'll forgive me. Your daughter always, Jennifer. I read it twice, folded it carefully, and slid it into my wallet. The paper felt small and hollow and heavy all at once. Dorothy entered carrying the box labeled Marural, Books, her handwriting familiar from 4 months earlier. She set it down and looked around the empty living room. It's strange, I said. I fought to get this back and now it's hollow. I won the house, but lost the life in it. She came to stand beside me. The life that was in it shoved you into a garage, she said simply. You'll build a better life now. We unpacked together. Books returned to shelves, framed photos reclaimed the mantel. My parents, my wife, little Jennifer smiling in a picture from decades ago. Each object placed back on display felt like a stitch in something torn apart, a reclamation of identity, one careful motion at a time. Dorothy found an old architecture book while pulling things from a box. The inside cover held an inscription in Jennifer's looping hand. To Dad, who taught me to see the bones of buildings. Love, Jennifer. I'd given it to her on her 10th birthday. 10 years ago, I said softly. She was thoughtful once. She was. Dorothy closed the book and looked at me. People don't change, she said. Circumstances reveal who they always were. You just didn't want to see it. Evening settled as we worked. The house shifted, not back to its old self, but into something new. Dorothy found pots and a few ingredients she'd brought from the bungalow and started the water boiling. So what now? She asked, filling a pot. You have the house back. The case is closed. You don't need an attorney anymore. I set the pot on the stove and handed it to her. Is that what you were? I asked. My attorney for a while. She shrugged, the corner of her mouth lifting. Then something else. She paused, and the next word sounded better than anything I'd heard in months. Something else sounds better. We made pasta. Simple, the same way twice before now. Once in her bungalow. Once months ago here when I still believed this house would be full of the family I'd raised. Cooking felt ritualistic and right, claiming space by creating a new memory over the old ones. We ate at the small table, talked about buildings I'd designed, the projects that kept me up at night, and about Dorothy's daughter in Boston. When had someone last cooked me dinner? Maybe 2 years ago, she said. You learned to fill the spaces differently. My phone buzzed. Jennifer, Harold, and Kevin had a huge fight. Kids scared. Please reconsider. Dorothy read it over my shoulder and squeezed my hand. We washed dishes together. She scrubbed, I dried, while twilight purpled the raised beds out back. I imagined tomatoes and herbs taking root there. Small things felt radical after weeks in motels and a cold garage. At the doorway, she paused with her keys in hand. "Thank you," I said, trying to cover everything feeling too large for words. She adjusted her coat and met my eyes. "You'd do the same," she said finally. "You help people. That's why this hurts so much. They took from someone who gives." I reached across, touched her arm. "Stay a little longer," I asked. Her keys stayed on the table. "Maybe one more cup of coffee," she said. We moved back to the kitchen. I started the coffee while she leaned on the counter watching me. The house settled. Floorboards creaked, the refrigerator hummed. A distant dog barked 3 houses over. Normal sounds, home sounds. She accepted the cup I handed her and our fingers brushed, then stayed pressed together. "Merle," she began, then stopped. I knew. We didn't say the words aloud. We didn't need to. 3 months of filings, depositions, and continuances had finally ended in a courtroom victory, but the real work came after. The May deadline passed with Kevin refusing to budge and forced us into formal eviction proceedings. Mid-August found us in the Multnomah County Courthouse. Dorothy in a charcoal suit, briefcase heavy with exhibits, more than an attorney now, my ally. We won. The order returned the house to me, but when we opened the door that afternoon, the living room felt emptied, not by violence but by a clean, clinical erasure. Pictures gone, pillows gone, toys gone, trophies gone. It was whole and hollow at once. Standing on the back deck that first night, Dorothy and I carried our wine to the Adirondack chairs I'd built 20 years earlier. The air had that cool, late summer bite. I said aloud what I'd learned, that kindness without boundaries is only weakness, that I deserved respect in my own life, that losing people who didn't value you isn't really a loss. Dorothy placed her glass on the railing. "And what did you gain?" she asked. I looked at her. Gray hair catching the fading light, comfortable in the space as if she belonged there. "Clarity," I smiled. "Strength, me," she nodded. "You were already here. That's the best part." Stars pricked through the dark. Somewhere down the block, wind chimes rang. The house stood quiet, empty but no longer lonely. I'd lost a daughter, at least for now. I'd lost grandchildren who didn't recognize their grandfather, but I'd found myself again. Boundaries reset, dignity reclaimed, and someone who saw my worth and stayed through the ugly work of getting it back. Dorothy's thumb drew slow circles on the back of my hand. Neither of us spoke. We didn't need to. This, in that small bright moment, was everything. If this story moved you, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. To hear the next story, click the box on the left.